Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news on the United Stand at 10 o'clock every morning, and we've got lots to discuss. Two really exciting stories, I feel, around transfers that probably won't happen in January, but I feel that and there's some breaking news from France as well about Man United not doing anything in January because of the takeover by Sir Jim, which I think is bollocks, to be honest with you. But it's a news show, so we'll talk about it. Olise in, says Akos. He's obviously read the news, but it's in the title as well. Olise and Ederson. We'll be talking about those in a few minutes' time. Very excited about these interests. Doesn't mean they're going to get done, but very interested about this. But I think what we can safely say this morning is that there are two sides to this transfer window. There is the immediate deals that we can do, and there are the bigger picture deals that we can do. And a lot of the bigger picture deals won't happen in January. Now, it's where you put the players. You know, if you're talking about a swap deal with Sancho, that is a January deal, and it's probably going to involve Malen, which we'll talk about in a minute. Werner would be a January deal. If you're talking about Todibo, he sort of sits in between, maybe summer, maybe January, probably more summer. And then there are the summer deals, the longer term deals, like the Edersons and the Olises, which are really exciting, which you can't be negative about because you want it to happen in January. When you've got a new football ownership side coming in, they need time to assess, and they've got every right to say, well, we've got money in the summer, we're going to spend it there. It's different to what's happened in the past. So I think what we're getting here, quite rightly, is we are going to be reacting to stories about players that probably won't happen in January, but probably will happen in the summer. And we're going to get stories about the January stuff as well. So I think you've just got to have a mindset of, of that really. And a lot of people getting very excited about the Olise story. So obviously he's in really good form for Crystal Palace at the moment. Scored a couple of goals at the weekend. I think he scored in the game before that. And Standard News in London are saying that Manchester United are very heavily scouting him and interested in him. He has got a contract till 2027. He would cost a significant amount of money, but there would also be interest from other clubs. But he's a very interesting profile of player. There are pros and cons around doing a deal like that. The cons would be, we've got to look into the mentality side of the player, the consistency, the character. We have to look at those things now, whether people like it or not. I think we almost live in a woke football world now. If someone misses a sitter, you're a bully if you say they're shit. So, but we've got to scrutinise the personality of the players now. We have to. We've bought so many players that aren't, the right mentality. You've got to look at Olise and look at that for the price. You can't do another Jadon Sancho is what I'm saying. You can't do another Alexis Sanchez. You can't get this wrong by spending a lot of money. But he's a very interesting profile of player. The cons as well are, well, we've still got Ahmad, Pellistri, Garnacho, Rashford, Anthony, Sancho. We've still got a lot of wingers that we need to resolve before we even look at buying another winger. So there's pros and cons about that, but we'll talk about that in a moment. I think the Ederson signing is really interesting as well. The Ederson link's very interesting. Midfielder for Atalanta. Seen little bits of him, but spoke to somebody last night about this who's an Atalanta fan who helped us out with Ahmad and helped us out with Rasmus. You can probably guess who it is. And they gave us quite a good brief on what Ederson's all about. And I quite like what I've heard. Mark, the info we get from Erik Ten Hag, INEOS talks will be telling about the culture shift of the club. If we get more spin and leaks, then how can we be optimistic about the future they want to build? I think that's a great point, Patrick. Thank you very much for your super chat. And also, Tom has been a member for 20 months. Get the badge in. Thank you very much, Tom. He says, although we wanted Qatar, do you think we can do well with Sir Jim? I think, Tom, honestly, I think it's mission impossible. But it's mission, let's wait and see. Definitely think about that. Also, let's fly into good morning. What's your opinion on Olise? Says Sahil. I'll talk about that in a minute. Very, very good point. Let's just fly into the news. There's quite a lot to get into. There was also breaking news coming out from a French outlet that it's going to be a cold January transfer window for Manchester United. Obviously, French outlets would have links to Nice, you would expect, being Nice in France, and that's where Sir Jim and INEOS are based. They're basically saying that Sir Jim Ratcliffe will not sanction any transfer business in January as he embarks on a major review of Manchester United. I would file this under a half-truth. I think it's only a bit of a breaking news, so maybe something else will come out later on today. But I actually read that and I'm not panicked by that. a hard winter for Manchester United as Sir Jim Ratcliffe takes control. Well, we already know this. We already know there's going to be a huge amount of scrutiny at Manchester United. We already know that we haven't got the director of football in yet anyway, so spending money is a bit stupid. But what we can see is exits. What we can see is short-term loan deals. We will see activity in the January transfer window, but we're not probably going to go and buy Olise or someone like that until the summer. And I can deal with that. I can deal with that. What I can't deal with is what we've had every year for the last few years, where John Murtagh comes out and says, we don't like to do business in January, it's a bad market to do it. And then you go, well, hello, some of the best business that's ever been done in the transfer market has been done in January. Look at Van Dijk, look at Vidic, look at Bruno, look at Luis Diaz, look at Matic to Chelsea. You can do good business in a January transfer window. And if you're going to ignore it, there needs to be a very good reason to do that. But Red Devil's advocate, spot on. This is about laying the foundations. But look, let's bring a bit of formula to the show this morning, because there is a lot to delve into. I'm very excited to talk to you about this Ederson interest as well. But let's start off with the Jadon Sancho update. A lot of people talking about this morning. Obviously, we spoke about it last night. I did a video on it last night. A lot of people are doing it today. So, you know, I don't want to repeat what people are saying this morning when we said it last night. But Sancho is going to go to Dortmund. We broke it on our Twitter account on Friday that the agency of Jadon Sancho was at Carrington last week. That's not normal behaviour to be at Carrington. You know, if you're there, it's contract renewal, it's exits, it's players that they've got. So, Carmine, welcome to the channel. Not seen you for a while. Happy New Year, and has just gifted 10 memberships. So massive win there from Carmine. Thank you very much. Get your badge in. We basically have the agents of Sancho in Manchester last week, and now we've got this Dortmund deal happening. Sancho's happy to do it. Obviously, it's familiar to him to be at Dortmund. Man United, I think, just want to move him away. He's still turning up to Carrington, doing pictures with fans and messages and birthday messages and all sorts. So I think United just want him out. He obviously, thankfully, wants out as well. The worst case scenario would have been if he'd said, I'm not going anywhere, I'm just going to sit here earning my wage. At least he's got that about him, that he wants to play football. And that deal is very concrete, and it, you know, should be done by the end of this week, which would be a good start to the January transfer window to remove a problem in Jadon Sancho. The flip side of the coin is swap deal. There's a viable swap deal here for Malen, who Dortmund are looking to move on. This is very, very, very possible for United. Bit of breaking news on this. The situation with Malen is that Dortmund would be interested in some sort of deal, without a shadow of a doubt. Whether United could negotiate a straight loan deal with a loan to buy until the summer is probable. Malen would be interested in coming to Manchester United. Obviously, he would. It's the Premier League. It's Manchester United. Ten Hag is very interested because it's a Dutch player. Not just because he's Dutch. I mean, there's some crap Dutch players, as we know. But he likes the profile of Malen and feels that he would suit his, situation, training, personality, everything like that. The barrier is apparently the money involved, and also INEOS. INEOS are not 100% sure about Malen, and also Dortmund would like to sell him for 25 million, which Manchester United don't have. So there's still a little bit of work to be done here. Can I just say Carmine's just gifted another 10 memberships, by the way. So 20 memberships gifted on a morning show already. Legend of the chat, Carmine. Thank you very much for that. So with Malen, I think that Sancho's going to go to Dortmund. That's definitely going to happen. He doesn't need to go to... whether Malen comes to Manchester United doesn't really depend on whether Sancho goes, because we can just do a straight loan deal for Sancho, which is what we will probably do. Would you take Malen? Let's do our first poll of the day. Just happy we're looking at defensive midfielders at all, says Persis. We'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, in brief, Sancho will go to Dortmund. There is an opportunity to bring Malen into Manchester United. Preferably, Dortmund would like to sell him, but Man United don't have the money, so that won't happen. There is a deal that could be done on loan with a loan to buy in the summer. Ten Hag, as we understand it, would be open to that, but INEOS are a little bit reluctant because they don't really feel that, well, it's not that they don't, it's that they're not 100% sure it's the right deal to do. And their stance is there's no rush on this. There may be better options. We've only got Wigan next month. Well, I say we've only got Wigan, but we've got Wigan next Monday and we play Spurs in 10 days. So there is a bit of time to, we don't need to rush into a Malen deal. But it's very much still on the table. And I suppose it will come down to the conversations that Ten Hag has with INEOS over the next few days on whether he can convince them that Malen is the right guy. What I will say is, nobody really knows what Ten Hag's preference is when it comes down to Guirassy, Malen and Werner. Because if he wants Werner over Malen, then that might be where United end up going. At the end of the day, they don't need to loan in Malen as part of a swap deal with Sancho. It's convenient and it's easy because you're already dealing with Dortmund, but it's not hard to just actually say, you can have Sancho, Dortmund, we're going to go and speak to Leipzig about Werner. So there are options for Manchester United. I suppose the next poll would be, would you go with Malen or would you go with Werner? But look, that's where we're at with the Sancho story. I don't want to dwell on it too much. He will go to Dortmund. Malen is still an opportunity for Manchester United. But Man United don't have any money in January. I said this yesterday. I think the minimum we've got is 20 million, and apparently that's if we sell somebody. So we don't have any money in this January transfer window. That's partially because INEOS don't want to spend any, but it's more because United don't have any. You just need to go back to what I've said to you before. In August, we wanted to buy Amrabat. We ended up getting him on loan because we didn't have the 20 million to buy him. So there isn't any money for Manchester United unless they sell some players. The stance on sale is that there are plenty of players that Man United can sell. They're looking at Varane. They're trying to get Martial out. There would be bids for Maguire, McTominay and a couple of others. But I think United are just thinking at the moment that unless really good bids come in, that they would probably just stick with what they've got, which is, I don't know whether that's the right thing or not to do, to be honest with you. But let's move it on because this is more exciting news, I believe. Manchester United have been linked with Crystal Palace's Olise and Atalanta's Ederson. And both these profile of players are rather interesting. And I'm sure they'll be the first of a few over the coming days, weeks and months, because these would fall into what I was talking about at the start of the show, which is the longer term transfer targets, the summer transfer targets that you're not going to get or be able to afford in January. We could be on the cusp of one of the most significant summer transfer windows in recent history of Manchester United. It has to be significant, it has to be ruthless, it has to be progressive. If it's the same as every other summer, what is Sir Jim Ratcliffe? And that's, basically what Patrick was saying at the start of the show. If we see the same patterns over the next few months that we've seen over the last few years, then Sir Jim really isn't making an impact. If we keep seeing silly wage contracts given out, the reluctance or inability to sell dead wood, and the overpaying for transfer targets that ultimately no one else wants, then we're not moving forward. So we have to see evidence of change. And I think evidence of change is looking at people like Olise and Ederson, and I'll explain that why in a moment, and completely transforming your transfer strategy and profile of player that you're recruiting. And that may well be buying a winger in an area where you're well stacked. Because with Pellistri, Ahmad, Garnacho, Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, you've got 6 wingers. Why would you buy Olise? Well, you'd buy Olise if you're going to clear 2, 3, maybe even 4 of those wingers out. And I think that sort of a strategy is quite exciting. Hi, Mark. Come to Norway. I'll personally show you around, says Sahil. Sounds great. And also, just happy we're looking at defensive midfielders. We've done that. Robert McCall says, early show tonight for the darts. Says Robert, what time is the darts on, Robert? I won't be watching the darts, but I can probably do an earlier show for you. And Jack, welcome to the Members Club. You're a legend. Get your badge in. So let's start off with Olise, even though I'm probably a little bit more excited about Ederson. Olise is on £100,000 a week at Palace. He will want at least 200k a week at Manchester United, says Alex. I mean, I can't believe, and Zero Blade, one of our moderators as well, says Olise would be great, set-piece specialist, technical, prem-proven, homegrown rule. He ticks all of the boxes. And Savage says Olise's better than all of our wingers. Well, straight away, we're clearly looking at a player here that's that's, you know, ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of you in the chat and a lot of me as well. 22 years of age. I remember him a couple of years ago. I think we played them in Australia, didn't we? I don't remember whether he played against us, but I remember we were talking about him. And, you know, he's got a really... he's a really exciting talent. There's no doubt about that. I think he's quick. He's got the ability to go past players. He can score a goal. He's only 22. He's doing it in a Crystal Palace side in the Premier League. So, you know, but there are also warning signs. Look at the way we sort of did the same with Zaha and we wasted the opportunity. So there are lessons to be learned. I think the biggest thing for me with any player now, and it can be this Ederson we're going to talk about at Atalanta, it can be Scalvini, it can be Todibo, it can be Olise. The most important thing for me now is, yes, you've got to tick the boxes of talent. You've got to tick the boxes of requirement to be a signing that United are interested in. But absolutely, categorically, we've got to look at this player. We've got to look at what they're doing off the pitch. We've got to look at their personality within the club. We've got to look at, you know, how punctual they are, how hard they work, you know, are they arrogant? You know, do they cut corners? You know, are they interested in brands and lifestyle more than football? And I know these things sound bad because it doesn't make you a bad person if you're a footballer that's obsessed with Instagram and trainers and music and playing computer games and, you know, sliding into DMs. That doesn't make you a bad person. You know, rock stars that's the lifestyle. But football has to look at it because when you're competing against the Mo Salahs and the Kevin De Bruynes and the Liverpools and the Man Cities, they construct teams of players that are focused on football and live, breathe football. And we've not done that. So, you know, it's ridiculous how woke football can be, in a sense that, you know, we see it all the time, don't we? You know, he's missed that sitter, useless prick. Oh, you're just a hater. Oh, look at the way he's passed that ball. He couldn't pass a parcel. Oh, you're just a bully. Oh, look at him. He's overweight. The only time he sprints is when he gets the whiff of a burger. Oh, you're just you're just fattest. Which actually you are on the last one. But my point, you know what I mean? It was a bit of a joke, the last one there. But my point is, big business impacts a lot of people's lives. Football is passion. And there is absolutely nothing wrong when you've got two players who are talented and one of them's really talented but off the pitch is a bit lazy, and the other one is not quite as talented but is basically obsessed with football. I'm buying the one who's obsessed with football because consistency is key. And this guy may never be able to put a 10 out of 10, but he probably gives me 8 out of 10 every week, whereas this guy can give me a 10 out of 10 every 3 months. I'm going for the obsession, and that's what we need to do, and it's something we haven't done. And I don't know anything about what Olise's like. I don't know what Ederson's like. I don't know what Scalvini's like. I don't know what Todibo's like. It's not my job. I'll get locked up for that if I'm following them around nightclubs and stuff. But Man United have to do that, and they clearly haven't done that with some of the players they bought. We don't need to name names, but we know that. So we need to do that. It's so important. That is going to be the marginal gains. That is going to be the difference between 5 years' time, more mistakes, and 5 years' time, progress. It's the personality of the player. We've got to buy the right type of player. And it's not just about what you see in a Crystal Palace shirt or an Atalanta shirt. You know, one of the big things I would say is if you're playing for Atalanta and you're doing quite well as a young player, playing for Manchester United, you're suddenly massive interest. Does that go to your head? Do you start partying a little bit more? You can't have that. You can't have that anymore. If we always have a bad start of season, about January, I'd watch Dortmund. Malen would be good. He's fast and can score goals. Olise is special and he can go past players. We need goals, Mark, says Zane. And I think with Olise, he's going to cost a lot of money. He's going to cost a lot of money, Olise. And Matthew McFadden says anything under 60 to 70 million would be good value. And I think that's about right. That's what he's going to cost. And therefore, it's a significant amount of money. And you've got to get it right. You've got to get that right. If you buy someone like Olise for 70 million quid, it's in the region of Sancho again. It can't be another Sancho. That's why you've got to look at the whole package. The stupid thing is, I think if Olise signs for Manchester City, he probably becomes the next Riyad Mahrez under Pep Guardiola. So if we're going to do these sort of deals, I'm excited, but we have to look at it. Somebody said that there is a release clause for Olise. I don't know whether there is, because remember, was it Chelsea who tried to get Olise? I think he nearly went to Chelsea. Olise has a release clause in his new Crystal Palace contract that becomes active next summer. This is great news then. The 20-year-old winger snubbed interest from Chelsea to sign a new 4-year deal last month after the Blues had activated... Wait, what's this all about? Okay. This is from August 2023. Chelsea activated his 35 million release clause, but the winger decided to stay at Palace. He signed the new clause, and so that had been activated. I don't know whether he's still got one. Yeah, there's nothing been confirmed other than... Okay, all right, this is interesting then. The Standard are saying that he has a release clause in his Crystal Palace contract that becomes active next summer. His new release clause is significantly higher than 35 million. So there you go. Thank you very much for that in the chat. It's always good to just do some live check there. So Olise had a 35 million pound release clause. It was activated by Chelsea. He turned it down. He signed a new 4-year contract. There is a release clause that comes into play this summer, but it's significantly higher than 35 million. So it's an unknown release clause that's higher than 35 million. If it's significantly higher, I would say it's somewhere between 50 and 70. If it's 50, still not a bad deal. If it's 60, it's okay. I'm with you, Mert. It's probably 60. 60's not terrible, 70's a concern, but look, Grealish went for 100, so look, I think he's going to cost somewhere between 50 and 70 million. You could offer them McTominay, says Jared. Look, every time I played FIFA, McTominay always ended up at Crystal Palace, so maybe there's something in that. Maybe FIFA knows. Brand says, hello Mark, my wife is leaving me and I'm absolutely distraught. Look at the reasons why, Bran. I always look at a divorce, and not that I've ever had one, as a football deal. You know, look at the relationship, look at what you've put into it, look at how much money you've spent, look at the return, look at the performance. At the end of the day, it's always sad when a player leaves, but look, if maybe it's like when Ronaldo leaves. You know, maybe they're leaving for Real Madrid. Maybe she's leaving for somebody better. In which case, you've just got to look at your own performance as well. I think when a relationship breaks down, you've got to look at it like a football deal. You know, is this a Jadon Sancho where really it's just broken down both sides? You know, you can't fix it. Is it Ronaldo where she's going on to better things, and you know, ultimately you've got to take a look at yourself? Or is it someone like a Scott McTominay where realistically you become attached and obsessed but blind to the fact that they're not good enough? So look at it like that, definitely. Always make it about football. Here we go, says, that might be a little bit too soon, Adrian. But Bran, it helps. What's your go-to breakfast, Mark? Looking for something new to try? Happy to hear that we're interested in players, says Dara. I always have, I'm definitely getting clipped on that. I always have, and Bran, most important of all, when you sell a player, you need to get back on the market scouting new talent. So, yeah, if you snooze, you lose. Yes, you're going to grieve. Yes, it's going to hurt. When Ronaldo left, it really, really hurt. Just don't go and sign Michael Owen. Anyway, breakfast time porridge, please. Breakfast time porridge. That's what I have. Carmine says, with these Shock, Olise and Ederson deals for the summer, how much do you think United will be given? I want to talk about that in a minute. I think it's a great point, actually. Jack, welcome to the Members Club as well. And there was a time when we played with 2 strikers. Now we're an injury and a cold away from playing without one. Should we try McTominay as a striker, says Ricky. Can I definitively just say, Jake Harrison in our members section, you get the shout out. Thanks for getting your badge in and being a member. Palhinha, so many people have spoken to you about Palhinha. I wasn't going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about Ricky and then we're going to talk about Ederson. But in relation to Palhinha, so many of you keep catching my eye in the chat saying this is the player that Man United should be buying. I absolutely agree with you. I would love Manchester United to sign Palhinha. I will definitely get clipped up on this, and I don't care because football is about what you see. Palhinha reminds me of Carrick, and I can't help it, and it might be height. And I get the fact that Palhinha is a little bit more aggressive than Carrick, but when I watched him play against Arsenal, he's always there in front of his back four to take the ball off them. And he always wants to get things going. In fact, one of the goals came from his ability to fly into a tackle and get the game going. To me, he's like a hybrid Michael Carrick. Michael Carrick is underrated. I don't think a lot of these hipsters ever watched Carrick because they were probably still up their mum's chuff. But the reality is, I think Palhinha would be perfect for Manchester United. Absolutely perfect. He could probably play next to Casemiro. He could be the heir to Casemiro's throne. I like the profile of the player. And it doesn't surprise me that people like Bayern Munich and other clubs are looking at him. He gets things going. And maybe Michael Carrick wouldn't work in the modern game because the game's moved on. Carrick was in his prime 15 years ago. But I do like what Fulham have with Palhinha. And yeah, the height thing probably makes me think, visibly he looks a bit like Carrick. But ultimately, what does Palhinha do? He's aggressive, which you have to be as a modern player. Maybe midfielders 15 years ago, holding midfielders, weren't as aggressive in going and getting the ball. But what he does do is he does shield the back four. He does win the ball back, and he does start the attacks. And that, to me, is perfect for what Manchester United need. I really like him. I really do like Palhinha. I just don't think United will be anywhere near the deal. But we could... The sad thing about Palhinha is you look at... And I'm going to say this as well. Whether you agree with me on Palhinha or not, this is a deal that you look at all the bad deals we've done. The Freds, the Sanchez, the Pogbas, the Di Marias, the Maguires, the Wan-Bissakas, the overpaying on players that ultimately probably weren't Man United players. Palhinha was being mentioned to Manchester United as a Sporting Lisbon player 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, we could have been on this deal. And he's gone to Fulham and he's been brilliant. So if he'd come to Man United, he would have been brilliant because he's Premier League proven. This is where we need to change our recruitment policy because we could have been looking at this deal 5 years ago when he was 23. Amazing how we signed Pogba and Sancho when the best managers that have ever been got rid of them both, says Lee. And thank you very much for that. There was a time we've done that from... Ricky Marino said, can Scott McTominay play as a forward? Look, let me close off Olise. Good signing, summer signing. Exciting that we're looking at him because if we're looking at a winger, it means we're going to clear some wingers out, which I think we need to do. My only reservation is, as with any signing, is please, please, please do your homework on the personality. Because what we don't need is another player that comes to Manchester United, gets obsessed with brand, becomes selfish, partying, whatever. We can't have any of that. We can't have any of that. We need obsession players. We need Man United players. In relation to McTominay as a striker, I said this on a watch-along, and I'm more than happy to say it again. What is the obsession with playing Scott McTominay as a striker? He can't hold the ball up. He can't pass. He's not quick. He's not good with his back to the goal, as we've seen many times. Scott McTominay is good in the penalty box, and we don't create chances in the penalty box. So how the hell is Scott McTominay going to lead the press aggressively, hold the ball up, run the channels, link the play up? Absolute bullshit. McTominay as a number 9 is just naive. It's really naive. McTominay in the last 10 minutes, when you need a goal and you're pumping long balls into the box and you're playing in the final third, absolutely, that's fine. But he's not better than Martial. That's bullshit. At least Martial, when he's on it, knows how to run the channels, hold the ball up, link up the play. McTominay is not a number 10. He's not a number 9. He's just a guy that can hang around the penalty box, and if it drops to him, he's a good finisher. But we're not that sort of club. We're not that sort. I think McTominay, for a Pep Guardiola, would be quite useful in games where they're desperate for a goal and they've got loads of ball around the box. But that's not Man United. We're not that sort of football club. Anyway, let me talk to you about Ederson. So you might not know a lot about this player. You might know a lot about this player. I'd say I'm somewhere in between. I like my Italian football. I don't watch it as much as I used to. We spoke about Scalvini at Atalanta yesterday, young 20-year-old centre-back that Man United might be interested in. More reports coming in today that Man United are interested in Ederson, their 24-year-old midfielder. I think he signed for them about a year ago for about 20 million quid. Atalanta would probably want around 40, 50 million at least for him. What type of a player is he? Well, I was speaking to my Atalanta expert last night, who you may well know. I'm not going to expose them because they might do a story on it themselves. And basically what they were saying about Ederson is that he certainly does have the potential to make a move to the Premier League and a bigger club. Certainly not going to be a January deal, but potentially in the summer. Atalanta might look to cash in again, as they did with Rasmus. As a player, I'd be quite excited about this deal if we scout him properly, again, looking at the suitability of the personality, etc. But as a player, he's really, really good at receiving the ball and playing what I call the simple pass. Amrabat, Bruno like the long pass. More risky, the transitional pass into the final third. Ederson is more of a player that gets the ball and plays the pass forward, but more constructive. The between the lines pass, the progressive pass, whatever you want to call it. I would say the 10-metre pass rather than the 30-40-metre pass. The guy that wants to get the ball and transition the team. Also, very, very energetic, very, very good in the modern midfield style of pressing, aggression, tenacity. So look, you know, in honesty, sounds a bit like a number 8 to me. Sounds a bit like somebody who could maybe become a good number 6. Sounds exactly the sort of player that Man United need. Sounds like a combination between Ederson and Fred. You know, which is probably the fusion of midfielder that we desperately, desperately need. I think if you could fuse the best bits of Fred and the best bits of Ederson, you'd have the perfect number 8. And I think for Manchester United, that's what we need. Do I think we're going to sign Ederson? Probably not. Probably not. But at the end of the day, he's not a Chelsea reject, as far as I know, Zero Blade. I think you're getting mixed up. I think Atalanta signed him from Brazil. But I don't get excited about this specific player because I don't know loads about them, and I'm basically giving you information from somebody who does. But that's what you do when you don't know everything. But what excites me about this is, and I'd need to see more of him as a player because I can't say let's sign him when I haven't really seen enough of him. But what I like about it is that this is the profile of midfielder that we need. We need a number 8. We need a number 8 that can actually play as a number 6. We haven't got one. We've got Manu and Casemiro, and that is it. Ederson, Mount, McTominay, Bruno cannot play as an 8. They're all 10s for me. We've got Manu and Amrabat and Casemiro who can play 6 or 8. And actually Casemiro's a 6 these days. So you've got Manu or Amrabat who can play as the 8. And I think you need more than that. I think you need more than that in the modern game. So looking at this profile of a midfielder is really, really important. You know my stance on Mason Mount. I think that we spent £55 million on somebody that should have been a specialist number 8. And we didn't need another attacking midfielder that might be able to be fused into that. So, look, do I think we're going to sign Ederson? Probably not. Does it encourage me that we're looking at that type of player? Certainly. And does he have the attributes to do the role that we need? Yes. But there'll be plenty of others who can do it. We've just mentioned Palhinha, which we probably won't do. But I think that sort of player would be good. I forgot all about Mount, says IK. Well, exactly. Do you think Hojlund will reach the heights of Ruud van Nistelrooy, says Nigel? Well, I think with Rasmus, I'm convinced Rasmus will be a top striker. I think, actually, Rasmus is a brilliant player to bring in because when we talk about the profile of personality and we talk about the talent profile, he ticks all the boxes. And as long as that doesn't change, all we want to change with Rasmus is the development of the player. With regards to the actual personality, he fits it like a glove. Very focused young man, very obsessed with his football, wants to be one of the best, lives, breathes, and, you know, consumes football. He is a very, very, very good example of the type of player that Man United should be buying. You know, very stable home life, very happy to be at Manchester United and just wants to be a Manchester United player. That's the sort of player we should be bringing into Manchester United. What he can do as a player is, I believe, and I hope some of you do, but it's up to you, I believe he can be a top striker in Europe. Can he be Ruud van Nistelrooy? I think that's you know, I hope so. But Ruud van Nistelrooy was one of the best strikers in the world in the early noughties. You know, I desperately wanted to bring in, there was a time where on Match of the Day every week it felt like Van Nistelrooy would score a goal and Thierry Henry would score a goal, and I desperately wanted to say that Van Nistelrooy was better than Henry, but he wasn't. But Van Nistelrooy was a top striker. I'm very happy with the Rasmus signing. I actually, funnily enough, read something the other day, and I remember saying it. We said it in the summer. If you don't see Rasmus as a talent to nurture, then you're not getting the brief. Whether we should have bought Rasmus and an experienced striker is on the club. But as soon as we bought Rasmus, we were buying a work in progress. I said that in the summer. Many of you agreed. The problem is, when you say you're buying a work in progress in the summer, everyone accepts it. When that work in progress hasn't scored a goal before Christmas in the Premier League, people start moaning about it. But it's contradictory, because as a work in progress, you have to accept that there will be bumps along the road, which is why I never worried about Rasmus. But it's the same thing in the summer when people say we must never be saying Ten Hag out, we must never be saying Ollie out, we must never be saying Jose out, because this summer's crap and it's been conducted by the Glazers. But then you have a few bad results and people say Ollie out, Jose out, Ten Hag out. So the trouble is patience. We all know deep down that Ollie, Jose, Ten Hag have been massively inconvenienced by the Glazers, and that has had an impact on their success at the club. But we'll always fall for the bigger option of, no, get rid of them. Get rid of them. And it's the same with Rasmus and any other player where they're a work in progress. When we buy them, yeah, this is a project signing for the next 5 years. But when they haven't scored a goal in the Premier League, it comes from the media more. Oh, they're a flop. It's always the way. Came across the video of you singing Ollie at the wheel on TikTok. What a time that was. At least everyone looked happy. You know what? In a way, I'm glad you've seen that, because it says two things. One, to the prats who say I've never stepped foot outside Old Trafford. I've actually played at Old Trafford, which is more than most people will ever do, and I'm very privileged to do that, and it's because of you that I got to do that. I've been to Old Trafford loads of times, and that video, and many others proves that. But also, more importantly, I was one of the prats singing Ollie at the wheel. I have to put my hand up. I was, like most of the fan base. But you've got to learn from that. I saw somebody the other day saying they were listing off all of Ollie's achievements. Great away record, finish second, this, that, and the other. And I think there are still people out there that I think need to get professional help who think that Ollie back at Man United would be a good idea. I don't get that mentality. It's like, ignore all the bad things and focus on the good things. And he is a player that's a legend, but he is a manager that's a failure. He was too weak. He had no coaching acumen. And at the end, the players who got him the job turned on him because they didn't trust him. They didn't think he was good enough. So I don't even care what fans think about Solskjaer. If you could honestly have an honest conversation with the players that played for him, in the end, the general consensus was, lovely guy, terrible coach, needed to go. Why would you bring him back? Why would you bring that back? But we all fell into the trap. But you've got to learn from that trap. If somebody said, let's get Michael Carrick in as coach now, I'd say no, absolutely not. Because it's just sentiment. He's doing a really good job in the Championship, but it's at Middlesbrough. If Michael Carrick wants the Man United job, he needs to manage in the Premier League consistently well and, prove himself to be not... You can't have a manager as a work in progress at Man United again. We can't have a work in progress manager. Because any manager that comes to United will automatically become a work in progress because United's a work in progress. But when you bring Mourinho to Man United, it becomes a work in progress project because it's, can Mourinho turn United around? But you can't have a work in progress manager with a work in progress club. It's just, we need to stop taking risks and recruit the best, which is why Blanc as a CEO and Mitchell as a director of football and Ashworth, if he comes in, to me, are perfect instead of going for Doogie Friedman or, God knows who else, CEO who used to play for the club. Mark, what can be the difference in negotiating deals with Blanc, Mitchell and Ashworth rather than negotiating with Arnold and Murta? Competence, Tony. Competence, Tony, in one word. That's what we need to bring into Manchester United, competence. And it might mean that in the early day... Look, I think you make a great point, because how do you go from a football club that Ajax get you to pay 80 million for Antony for, and Antony's agent gets a 10 increase wage increase from 20 grand to 200 grand. How do you stop being that club? Well, what happens is you change, you go to Crystal Palace, you try to sign Olise, Crystal Palace say 90 million, and Olise's agent says 200 grand a week, and you go, no. And you walk away. And you maybe have to do it again. But you change your reputation in the industry. Man United mean business. They're not going to get fucked about anymore. They'll just walk away. They're not a meal ticket anymore. And agents will know that. Real Madrid don't get bent over. Real Madrid can go into a deal, offer less money and less wages and get the player off the reputation of Real Madrid. It won't happen overnight. Clubs, agents have been rinsing us for years. You can't just go, we've got a new ownership now, we aren't going to get rinsed, because they'll still try it. They'll still say, well, the Glazers own the club. What probably needs to happen is you need to have you probably need to miss out on a few players first to prove that you are going to change. And, we'll know if we change because we'll see the transfer fees and we'll know the wages. Sammy says, if Erik ten Hag does not get top 5 and does not do well in the FA Cup, would you sack him in the summer? He has had his signings and done nothing, says Sammy. Well, it's all if, buts and maybes. I said last night, if we don't qualify for Europe, I think he'll lose his job. So I think you sort of get your answer there. But these are the things that Sir Jim Radcliffe and INEOS are going to be talking to him right now. Marv says, out of context, maybe we should loan our players also out to the club where they play the style we play at the club, especially the youth. Yeah, I think it's. I think you're absolutely spot on with that. It's not always easy, but we should definitely look at that. And Jay, who's been a member for 19 months, get your badge in, Jay. Thank you very much for supporting the channel in 2024. Can we please sign someone half decent in January? Which circles me back to the story I wanted to talk about to you finally, is that in France, they are reporting that it will be a cold January for Manchester United, with INEOS freezing all transfer activity. This is a half-truth story. I'd say it's partially sourced, but partially fantasy. Manchester United will not be making a big, significant signing in January. I very much doubt that happens. Financially, we haven't got the money, and also INEOS aren't really in control yet when they're doing a review period. However, it doesn't mean we won't do anything. And Jack Stockdale says Malen is better than no one. And I think that is very much going to be the mentality of INEOS, Sir Jim, Ten Hag and everybody. I think there's an acceptance that we're not going to spend any money in January, but it doesn't mean we can't sell, move on and loan. And I think that United could sell a player or two in January, because you may as well get started sooner. There's no point waiting to sell everyone in the summer, because you give yourself a really short window to do it. Remember, we've got the Euros this summer, which means most of our squad's away for a month, which gives us a very shortened transfer window. So moving players on in January is actually very intelligent. Also, loan deals are good deals. If you can't get what you want in January because it's not available, but you need something, you may as well take a punt on the best loan to buy deal you can do. And I think that's what Man United will do. I think we'll see players moved out where we can, and I think we will bring in a player or two on loan, i.e. your Malens or your Werners, which I know it doesn't please everybody, but I do agree with Jack that it's better than nothing. Would you bring Brandon Williams or Fernandes back? Says Alan. I'm not convinced on Brandon Williams. I don't think he's good enough to play for Manchester United. I think there's question marks about his personality. It's not fair to highlight one player, but I think the player himself would admit he's been caught in uncompromising situations a few too many times. There's been a few too many Instagram posts which people find funny, but ultimately don't portray professionalism that we need. I think the Ipswich move for Brandon Williams has been fantastic, and it might ground him a little bit. He's young. He's certainly got the passion. Has he got the ability? I think one of the big things about Brandon Williams is, and I've said it for years, is why does he play as a fucking left back? He's been playing at right back, and I just don't know why we didn't do that. He's right-footed. He should be playing at right back. I think he's a player to sell. I think he's had his chance at United. I think he's a player to sell. I don't think he's a player to bring back. As for Fernandes, I really like him. The fact that Benfica are looking at him is fascinating to me. So I really do like Fernandes, but there's a little bit of work to be done there. 63% of you would take Malen on loan. So this is the big one for you. If you're taking Malen on loan, either or, on loan, Malen or Werner, which way you're going? This will be interesting. We had another super chat come in. Lockie, welcome to the Members Club, by the way. Absolute legend. Thank you very much for supporting the channel in 2024. You'll get your badge in on your live chat from now on. Appreciate that. And John says, I don't see the point buying players. Let Sir Jim come in, put them all players underperforming on notice and try and get this review done. I completely agree, John. I completely agree. I think at the end of the day, the only signing United could make in January is Todibo, because it doesn't matter if you do it in January, because INEOS like Todibo, Ten Hag likes Todibo, so why would you not do that deal if it's possible? But every other deal that's permanent should be done in the summer, because it gives you time to assess. And somebody says, but what if a really good deal drops into your lap? What deal's going to drop into your lap in January? You know, is Kylian Mbappe going to bang his head and just wander into Carrington and say, oh, can you sign? You know, I don't see that. Todibo makes sense because INEOS like him and Ten Hag likes him. Everything else should be a loan deal, because otherwise you're a hypocrite. The review is also to establish the type of player that you need to buy. How can you start buying the players before you've done the review? But Todibo does work because we wanted him in the summer and INEOS. So there we go. Just a shout out to the hoodie, by the way. If you want to get one of these, we are selling the Goldbridge back of the net hoodie in lots of different colours. I think the link is in the video description, but it's also just go to United Stand Shopify. And also, can I give you a big shout out to the podcast, Goldbridge Saves Football, back in the new year. It was out yesterday. A lot of people getting involved with the podcast. If you've never tried a podcast, check out Goldbridge Saves Podcast on iTunes and on Spotify. Completely different content, and lots of things are happening with that this year. So get ahead of the game and check out the podcast. Thank you everyone who's joining the Ultras over there. And on the Malen Werner thing, before we go, either or, would you loan Malen or would you loan Werner? Interesting, 54% of you would go with Malen. 48% of you would go with, 45%, it's moving a little bit. So it's about 55 in favour of Malen, and it's about 45% in favour of Werner. Dito says, what would you do? You bastard. I would go with Werner. I like Malen, but I think Werner's more... I actually just think we need to go short term, really. Thanks everyone for watching this morning. I'm loving the shows at the moment. Of course, we're back at 2 and we've got the evening show. Big shout out to Bran as well. Hope he's doing well. And Werner was poor, but I think this was Chelsea. Werner has a great attitude and work rates his arch. I agree with that. I do agree with you on that one. Malen is a bit more of a winger, says Pers, and Malen's not Premier League proven, says Magavos. Well, Werner potentially isn't as well. I think they're both risks, but they're both short term, and you can send both back in the summer. So, to me, I think Werner's more of a striker and probably suits our system better. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe, and I'm sure I'll speak to you very soon. Take care.